Welcome to AI Daily Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we're diving into the deep end, right? The biggest AI news from today, Saturday, April 5th, 2025. Oh, and one more thing. This whole deep dive is brought to you by AI. Yeah, from the research we used to, how we're talking about it right now, it's all AI powered. Pretty wild, huh? We've got four big stories we're going to unpack today. First up, a brand new study from the Pew Research Center, and it looks at how people, everyday people and AI experts feel about the good and the not so good when it comes to AI. Then we'll dig into some research that's looking at the core differences between how AI processes stuff and how we humans think. After that, we're going virtual, heading over to the UN to talk about AI and warfare and why a lot of folks are really worried about it. And to wrap things up, we're going to look at how AI is shaking things up for artists and get this, even changing how parents, parent in our digital world. So much to cover. Let's jump right in.
It's a lot to process for sure. The Pew study is a great place to start, though. It gives us a snapshot of the current state of the AI conversation. The thing that jumps out at me right away is the difference in how AI developers and the general public see things, their outlook on AI.
Yeah, totally. It's a pretty stark contrast. I mean, almost half of the AI experts, like 47% to be exact, are more excited than worried about AI. But then you look at the general public and it's only 11%. That's a huge gap, right? And on the flip side, more than half the public, 51%, they're more worried than excited. That's a pretty big difference. And these aren't just, vague feelings either. The study gets into specific areas where the public is, well, they're kind of freaking out.
You're right. The study highlights job security as a major concern, which, makes sense, right? With all the talk about AI automated jobs, it's natural to be worried. And then you have the whole thing with deepfakes and chatbots becoming so realistic that it's getting hard to tell what's real and what's not. That can really mess with our trust in online interactions. And I think there's also this underlying fear that AI might be, making us less connected as humans as it starts taking over more and more roles in our lives. And, you combine all that with how differently experts and the public view the impact of AI on work. It makes you wonder, right? I mean, most experts see AI creating new opportunities, while a much smaller portion of the public feels the same way. There's a real disconnect there.
Totally. It makes you think, are the experts maybe too focused on the potential upside and not really grasping how much disruption AI could bring? Or is it the public? Are they maybe not seeing how AI could actually help us do our jobs better or even create new types of jobs we haven't even thought of yet? But there is one area, at least, where both groups seem to agree that AI could spell trouble: elections.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point. It's like this weird area of agreement. The study found that very few people, like only 1 in 10, whether they're an expert or just someone from the general public, believe that AI is going to have a positive impact on how we run elections. They're all worried about misinformation and, deepfakes being used to manipulate voters. It's a real vulnerability in our democratic systems, and it seems like everyone recognizes that.
And what's even more concerning is that nobody really seems to trust that we can actually put safeguards in place. The study shows that people, both Democrats and Republicans, they don't have much faith that the government can keep up with AI and create effective regulations. And there's not a lot of trust in corporations either. That quote from the anonymous expert about, how companies are always under pressure to make money and how that can clash with ethical development, that really hits home.
It does. It shows how complicated this all is.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technology itself. It's about the whole system. The study suggests that nobody's really convinced that the way we're approaching AI development right now is actually going to benefit society as a whole. It makes you think, right? Like what else can we do? What other ways can we make sure AI is developed ethically?
It's a huge question. Another thing the study looks at is the difference between how men and women view AI, and it's kind of interesting. Among the general public, more men than women see AI as a positive thing. But get this, that gap is even bigger among the experts. Like, why do you think that is? Why are men so much more optimistic about AI?
That's a really tough question to answer. I mean, the study itself doesn't really say. But, maybe it has something to do with how men and women think about risk or how they see the potential benefits and drawbacks of new technology. It could also be that they have different levels of understanding or exposure to AI. But the fact that this difference is even more pronounced among people working in the field, that's really something to think about. It definitely needs more research. And it also reminds me of how the study couldn't really look at racial differences among experts because they didn't have enough data. But there was that one quote from a Black expert that really stood out. He talked about how AI automation could end up hurting underrepresented groups more than anyone else. That's something we absolutely have to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. AI can't just benefit the same groups that always benefit from new technology, right? We have to make sure everyone benefits. So, the Pew study is basically a big call for open and honest conversations about AI, and not just among the experts. The public needs to be involved too. And it's a reminder to policymakers and corporations that they need to be really careful as AI keeps developing. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about how AI actually thinks. Or maybe a better way to put it is, how does AI process information compared to us humans? There was this study published in Transactions on Machine Learning Research that looked at AI's ability to think analogically.
This gets to the heart of what we even mean by artificial intelligence.
Right.
Is AI really understanding and reasoning like we do, or is it just really, really good at spotting patterns in the data it's been trained on? This study seems to suggest it's more the latter, that there's a fundamental difference in how AI and humans approach problems. The researchers found that AI really struggles with abstract thinking and has a hard time applying what it's learned to new situations that are, even slightly different. And for humans, that's like second nature.
Yeah, they use this example with letters, right? There was this pattern where you had to remove repeating characters. Humans could figure out the pattern and apply it to new sets of letters, no problem. But the AI kept messing up. It was stuck on memorizing specific examples instead of getting the underlying idea.
Exactly. It shows how humans build these mental models of how things work. And that lets us adapt to make connections even when things aren't exactly the same. But AI, it's mostly just pattern recognition. It can be amazing at finding those patterns, but it doesn't really grasp the why behind them. And this has some pretty big implications when we start thinking about how we use AI in the real world.
Huge implications. Think about law, for example. Lawyers need to be able to see connections between cases, even when the details are different. This study suggests that AI might miss those connections if the new case doesn't look almost exactly like something it's seen before. Or take medicine. Doctors rely on intuition all the time. They spot subtle patterns, they pick up on context clues when diagnosing a patient, and that's something AI, at least for now, can't really do. Even in education, a teacher has to be able to adjust their teaching based on how each student is learning, and that's a form of analogical thinking that AI would probably struggle with.
Those are great examples. And it goes beyond practical stuff, too. Think about creative fields, like writing or music. AI can write stories and compose music, but it often feels, I don't know, kind of hollow, right? It lacks the depth of emotion and understanding that comes from human experience, and that's what makes art truly powerful. And in ethics, humans can weigh different factors and consider intent in a way that AI just can't. AI is mostly about following rules, but ethics is so much more nuanced than that.
The study also makes the point that accuracy isn't everything. For AI to be truly useful in the real world, it needs to be robust, which means it can still work well even when it's given slightly different information. And it needs to be able to generalize, to apply what it's learned to new situations.
Exactly. Being able to transfer learning from one context to another, that's a key part of human intelligence that AI is still trying to figure out. So what this study is saying is that, yeah, AI can be intelligent in some ways, and it can do specific tasks incredibly well, but it's not really thinking like a human yet. And that means that, at least for now, AI is best used as a tool to help humans, not to replace us. Okay, moving on to something completely different but equally important. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the growing concern about using AI, especially in warfare. This was a big topic at the Unity Global Conference on AI security and ethics in Geneva.
It really was. This conference brought a lot of anxieties to the surface. Gosia Loy from Unidir made a really strong point. She said, getting the tech community involved in how we govern AI is indispensable. She even called this AI moment an Oppenheimer moment, which is, well, that's pretty heavy, right? It shows just how big this is and how much responsibility comes with developing AI, especially when it comes to weapons. The need for clear rules and boundaries based on human rights, international law, the whole ethical shebang, that was a big theme.
Comparing AI development to the development of nuclear weapons, that's a powerful image. And it shows how AI could completely change warfare as we know it. One of the biggest worries that came up at the conference was, how reliable is AI in a military context? Can we really trust it to make the right decisions in high-pressure situations?
Exactly. David Sully from Oddvi was very blunt about it. He said AI is very unrobust and prone to errors precisely because it doesn't have that deep understanding of context that we were just talking about. And his warning about how easy it is to make AI go wrong is pretty scary when you think about what could happen on a battlefield. And Arnaud Vali from Command AI had similar concerns. He talked about how hard it is for developers to predict what's actually going to happen in a real combat situation. It's just too complex and unpredictable.
It all points to the importance of keeping humans in control, of having human oversight in any military use of AI. Michael Karamian from Microsoft talked about how their company focuses on things like safety, security, fairness, and accountability when they're developing AI. He mentioned their restrictions on facial recognition technology, which is, very relevant here. And he emphasized the need for companies to work together and share knowledge so we can tackle these challenges responsibly.
But it's not going to be easy, is it? As Selina Nur-Abdullah from the International Telecommunication Union pointed out, we're facing what she called an AI governance paradox. Basically, technology is developing so fast that our ability to regulate it just can't keep up. It's like a constant game of catch-up. She emphasized that we need a global conversation about AI, and it can't just be the developed countries calling the shots. We need to include developing nations, too.
Absolutely. And Peggy Hicks from the UN Human Rights Office brought up another big concern that's been around for a while, the idea of taking humans out of the decision-making loop, especially in combat. Christoph Heinz has talked about this, too. Removing human judgment from warfare, it raises all kinds of questions about accountability, the laws of war, and the potential for things to escalate in a way that nobody intended.
And then there's the problem of monitoring AI. David Sully compared it to trying to detect nuclear tests, but without any clear signs or fingerprints to tell you if AI is being used or misused. It makes enforcing international agreements really, really difficult. Moses B. Kanyel from Stellenbosch University made a good point about the role of academia. He said universities need to be teaching the next generation of AI developers about ethics, about the bigger picture. And Mozilla echoed that, saying developers need to understand the impact their work is going to have on society.
It's interesting to hear the different perspectives from various countries, too. China is focused on setting clear boundaries for AI exports, especially when it comes to national security. The Netherlands is worried about the risks of combining AI with other powerful technologies. And countries like Pakistan, France, Italy, and South Korea, they're all trying to figure out what AI means for security and what the consequences might be. The overall message from the UN conference was pretty clear. We need to get serious about governing AI in the security domain, and we need to do it now. But it's not going to be easy. There are a lot of challenges. We need to be strategic, we need to think ahead, and we need countries to work together. Okay, time for another big shift. Let's talk about AI and art. Lonnie Stark wrote this really interesting essay about how AI is impacting artists.
I really connected with that essay. Stark is involved in the tech world herself, but she's also an artist, and she writes very honestly about how the rise of AI art has made her question her own work. She talks about feeling like her creative process, which is slow and deliberate, is suddenly irrelevant because AI can create amazing images so quickly. It's a very human response to this new technology, and it makes you think about what it means to be an artist in the age of AI.
Yeah, I thought her initial reaction was really relatable. She felt like her skills were being devalued because AI could do things so easily that she had to work hard for. And that makes us ask some fundamental questions, right? What is art? What role does human intention play? What does it even mean to be creative?
Totally. She talks about having this conversation with other artists, and they helped her see things differently. They reminded her that her art is about more than just the final product. It's about the ideas behind it, the personal meaning she puts into it, her unique creative journey. That conversation was a turning point for her.
It was. It helped her realize that instead of seeing AI as a threat, she could see it as another tool, something to work with, something to respond to, maybe even push back against. It's still her art, her vision.
And she makes this crucial distinction between generating possibilities and creating meaning. She gave the AI some prompts based on her own symbols and imagery, and the results were interesting, but they felt empty. They lacked the personal touch that her own work has. That's when she realized that the artist is the filter. They decide what to keep, what to throw away, what the final message is going to be. And I loved that quote from one of her fellow artists. You are the filter. It doesn't matter what the machine gives you. The act of choosing, that's your authorship.
Such a powerful quote. It captures the idea that AI can be this amazing tool for exploration and generating ideas, but it's still the artist who shapes those ideas into meaningful art. And Stark doesn't just talk about visual art. She applies this idea to branding, design, writing, all kinds of creative fields. She asks this big question: In a world where machines can generate, what does it mean to originate?
It's a question every creative person is asking right now, I think. And her main takeaway is this. AI can imitate beauty, it can scale up ideas in ways we never could before, it can give us tons of options, but it's still humans who give those things meaning. We decide what matters, we make the artistic choices. And her message to other creatives is really hopeful. She says, stay connected to your own voice, keep experimenting with both traditional tools and AI, and trust that your unique perspective still matters.
Yeah, her simple statement, "the filter is you," is a really powerful reminder that in this world of AI, human intention and artistic judgment are more important than ever. Okay, one last stop on our AI journey today, parenting. Amanda Caswell wrote this fascinating essay about how her son started using ChatGPT and what that taught her about parenting in the AI age.
It's a really relevant essay, especially for parents. Caswell starts by talking about how different her own experience with technology was compared to her kids. She grew up as a Zennial, but her 4-year-old, he just gets how to use an iPhone. It's like second nature to him. It shows just how fast the digital world is changing for our kids. So when she found out her son was using ChatGPT, it wasn't a total shock. But what surprised her was how he was using it.
Right, she thought he was using it for schoolwork, like a lot of parents would assume. But it turned out he was just using it to satisfy his curiosity. He was asking it all sorts of questions like, can rabbits swim? Or how many Starburst candies would it take to reach the sun? It's a whole new way for kids to learn about the world. So different from how we used to do it.
And the reason he liked ChatGPT, he said, it just gives me the answer. I don't have to click a bunch of links. It shows how much kids today expect information to be instant and direct. They don't have the patience for browsing and searching like we did. Caswell had mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, she was glad he was learning, but she was also worried about misinformation, the fact that ChatGPT doesn't tell you where it gets its information from, and the fact that her son was just passively receiving answers instead of actively searching for them.
Her reaction was really interesting. Instead of banning ChatGPT or trying to control his access, she took a different approach. She decided to teach him how to use it responsibly. She created a custom AI chatbot just for him, with stricter rules, age-appropriate explanations, follow-up questions, and a more conversational tone. She's actively shaping his AI experience instead of just reacting to it.
And she also showed him Google's Learn About platform, which is designed for kids to learn in a more responsible way. Her whole approach to parenting is about education and guidance. She wants to teach her son critical thinking skills so he can evaluate information for himself no matter where he finds it.
It's a good reminder that AI isn't good or bad in itself. It's all about how we use it. And Caswell's point is that parents need to adapt, to find new ways to guide their kids in this new digital world. But the basic lessons, like asking good questions, thinking critically, being curious, those are still just as important as ever. In fact, she sees AI as a potential opportunity for learning and exploration as long as we use it thoughtfully.
It's a really positive way to think about AI and parenting. It's not about fear, it's about finding ways to use it for good. So that brings us to the end of our AI Daily Deep Dive. We covered a lot of ground today. We started with how the public and experts view AI differently. Then we looked at the fundamental differences between how AI and humans think. We talked about the really serious concerns about AI and warfare and the need for global rules. And then we explored how AI is changing the world of art and even how we parent.
We did. It's clear that AI isn't just some technological advancement. It's a force that's making us rethink some of the most basic things about our society, about what it means to be intelligent, creative, secure, and even how we learn and grow.
With AI becoming such a big part of our lives, from how we get information to how we express ourselves and even how we raise our kids, what area do you think will change the most in the next decade because of AI? And what are the biggest implications of that change that we need to be paying attention to?
That's a big question. I think the way we interact with information and knowledge, that's what's going to change the most. AI can process, analyze, and create information on a scale we've never seen before. It could make learning accessible to everyone, but it also creates huge risks, like the spread of misinformation and the erosion of trust in reliable sources. We need to focus on digital literacy and critical thinking skills if we want to navigate this new information landscape.
That's a really important point. Thanks for joining us for this AI Daily Deep Dive.